Yo, what up?
What's going on?
Electric.
Electric. Maybe
26 episodes in, and I'd still fuck it up. Eclectic Soundtrax, Skunk Manhattan, Victor Ramos, and we are doing a little recap here. We did one after, I think, 8 episodes, and we've had many fascinating guests and wonderful conversations since then. And we thought we would talk about that, do a little recap. We'd like to wish everybody a happy holiday season. And I hope everyone's conducting themselves in a safe manner and being good boys and girls. Santa can slide on down your chimney. Santa's going to get his mask dirty as fuck this year, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah,
Santa might die trying to wear a mask, inhaling all that soot.
He's very obese. That's one of the factors, right?
It is. And he's pretty old. He's been doing this a long time. So Santa really ought not be messing around. I don't think Santa should eat the cookies this year, you know?
Unless they're wheat cookies.
Anyway, our normal podcast, I would say, is better than what you just heard. Let's get to it, Vic. Well,
yeah.
where did we, so who was our first guest after we left off? I think after Mike Watson from Dangerous Toys fame.
We did, yeah.
But we did a recap before or after he was the guest.
We did the recap after
right.
Mike, yeah.
Oh, and so our next guest then was PJ Evans, Paul Evans, also known as Number 3, was the drummer for One Eye Doll for a while in Austin, did a bunch of touring, went out to LA for a while, did the acting thing. Oh, funny enough, as we were speaking of PJ, so I sent him that track that you heard that we were talking about, a track that we're thinking we're going to use as some intro music. It hasn't been released. I'll probably be released as a good Rogering. I just pulled it up, put it together, and anyway, it's kind of a funk track that PJ and I did years ago when we were doing this comedy sketch group, and we had a friend that was going to audition for the what was supposed to be a reboot of In Living Color, but never came about. Anyway, so these auditions turned into some sketch comedy, little skits we did, and one of the skits was a bunch of guys having an orgy with a blow-up doll. And so PJ and I came up with he basically put down a drum beat, and then I just was literally grabbing, I think we talked about it on the podcast, right? I was like grabbing a bass, and he had a Tragan guitar, I think, and just grabbing some random guitars and shit that he had laying around the apartment and like threw this song together. But it's a fun, cool, funky throwback. It was supposed to have that throwback sort of funk porn vibe, right? Was the intent. And but PJ, as we're talking right now on my other computer, I'm actually uploading. He sent me just the other day this gigantic, like over 100 gigs worth of shit of these videos. So I'm about to see these videos and possibly post this online, and anyone involved in that will lose their jobs immediately.
Well, it sounds like a regular weekend in the military. Blow up doll orgy.
Right.
Yeah. Or a 96 or 72 hour pass, you know.
What else did we chat with PJ about? Oh, he just moved. But we was talking about moving.
That's
he was
right.
in Asheville. He actually he told me he just got a place. So he's in
Tennessee,
West
right?
Tennessee. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
We met PJ back in the day working together at Rackspace, and we used to work out together. Shared the same personal trainer and stuff. And lots of fun.
Go to shows
with PJ.
Yeah, go to shows, hang out. Fun stuff. I hadn't talked to him in a while. That was cool catching up with him.
Yeah, it was fun. And PJ's got some great stories. We got the street pizza story. So that was episode number 10 with PJ.
We actually
and then we went
Chris Devore, right? Chris Devore was in there somewhere.
I missed that.
Yeah.
Chris Devore was before that. Yeah, Chris. The ever so opinionated Chris Devore. Great guitar player. Fantastic. I played in the band with him when I first moved here in 2005. We were in a band together called Pitchfork. And he played guitar and did some vocals in that band as well. And that band was around for maybe 6 months. We played a lot of dive bars. We played some biker rallies and stuff. And it was a fun time. We were all young and cutting our teeth a bit. But then I caught up with Chris a few years later. We've kind of loosely stayed in touch. But he plays a lot of gigs. He's a professional musician. He plays a lot of swing gigs and like gypsy style jazz guitar. all these different things. And so we talked about that. And then we did some serious nerding on that podcast, but we talked about guitar music theory and modes. And then there was a guessing game at the end, and I don't know what was going on. But I think the funnest part of that podcast was the unrelentless bashing of Green Day, a band who I personally can't stand. And Chris, who is not shy about his opinions, made it clear that he didn't like Green Day. So we enjoyed ragging on Green Day. And then poor Eric Johnson, just completely unwarranted. Chris just let him have it, which I think was just wrong, because I think Eric is a sweetheart and a phenomenal guitar player and a great songwriter. So
he got an autograph from him, right? No, wait, he was talking about
no, I got an autograph.
You got an autograph
because
he had a guitar or something.
Back.
Yeah,
I think he signed my guitar way back. Yeah, but and actually I want to say next week. No, it'll be right before Christmas, right at about Christmas time, somewhere the week of Christmas. We're going to have Dave Shear on the show, and Dave Shear now plays with Eric Johnson. Just an unbelievable guitarist, singer. I mean, this guy plays everything. He's a phenomenal musician, really, really great musician. And so now I know he's gotten on stage with like Gary Clark Jr. and stuff like that. And now he's playing with Eric Johnson. So
that's cool.
Be really, really cool to talk to him. I think he'll probably have slightly different opinions than Chris Devore.
Well, Chris was also he did a live stream with the Del Castillo brothers right after.
That's right. We were plugging that, and so I mean, he's no slouch. He did a live stream with the Del Castillo brothers, and you know what it was? He played with he used to play with the band the Flying Belinka Brothers. Who, dude, small world. The Flying Belinka Brothers were next door neighbors to PJ. Right.
Oh, that's
I used to see their band part, and so it's funny that we had those two podcasts back to back. Because they used to live right next to PJ, and I'd see that band there. And that was back when Chris played with them. So the first time I saw the Flying Belinka Brothers was through Chris. That's how I heard of them. I saw them back at that place, Ruta Maya. And yeah, they're a phenomenal band. And Z and those guys, they've been out in San Francisco. I think they may be in Arizona now. They're sort of traveling from city to city, doing these month-long deals with some kind of circus deal where they're the band entertainment. I'm not sure the details, but
getting shot out of cannons.
Yeah, Aaron from the Invincible Czars is playing with them, so I know that they were out in San Francisco for a month at least. I don't know. I'm not sure where they're at now, but yeah. So Chris Devore was our next guest, and then after that we had Dan Welby.
That's right. Yeah.
And Dan is someone that I've known for longer than both of those guys. I've known Dan since probably 2000 maybe.
In my days.
Before your days. I've known Dan longer than you even. Yeah, we met in 2005.
MI back in out in Los Angeles.
The MI. I thought you said my.
Oh, no.
The world doesn't revolve around you, Victor.
It's about me. Come on, it's all about me.
You know that longer than me? What the fuck, man? Why don't you start a podcast with him? God damn it.
Podcast is over, man.
Yeah, fuck this. Yeah, MI, Musicians Institute out in Los Angeles, California. When my brother and I went out there, my brother ended up playing with. I had actually met another guy we're going to have on the podcast in January, Mark Thomas, who now owns a studio in Nashville. I believe it's called Hit Garage Records is his company or his business. But we'll talk to him, and he is how I had met him in College Station through another guy he played music with. Went to a party or something, met this dude, guitar player. He had a dime guitar. We got to talk, and it turns out he was going out to MI. We went out there about the same time. He ended up being roommates with these guys, Hostile Groove, who moved out there from Boston, Massachusetts in 99 something. And so they were all out there a little before us, but that's how I met them. So when we first went out there to visit and we're checking things out, I met those guys. They were staying in a hostel at the time. My brother ended up joining their band, being roommates with them and touring with them in like 2003 when they put out their Unleash the Mass Attack album. But that's how I knew Dan was a drummer for that band, and attended MI. And as happens with a lot of guys that go there, he ended up teaching a lot of musicians in general. But I think he did. Him and the singer Sean both did some kind of taught and were involved in some kind of capacity with the Musicians Institute. And then Dan opened up his own school a few years ago with his now wife, Electra Barcos, called Soundcheck Music School out there. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember where. Was it Woodland Hills? Something like that. Near Encino, somewhere in that area, in the valley. So that's what he's got going on. And we were talking about COVID and how schools are dealing with that. And I thought it was really cool that they were still doing a lot of remote stuff. We've all kind of had to switch to the remote stuff. But they were doing some in-person stuff, and they actually had a shower. I thought this was really cool. They had a clear shower curtain separating the room for vocals, and they still wore like shields and stuff and taking all the precautions. So they have some of that going. They have got a lot of online stuff, so they've been able to stay afloat and doing, pretty well, all things considered, with the pandemic.
I think he said he's gotten a little bit more business that way, just the remote lessons. Yeah,
exactly. So I think it's starting to, things are starting to pick up again, and yeah, it's a big transition to figure out into that. But once you do that with a teaching business, so many people have done this. It's like, okay, wow, this is actually something you probably wouldn't have done prior, but it can actually increase your revenue, and now you're able to teach people all over the world, instead of just in your community. So that's cool. And what I discovered from this too was so cool. I had not talked to Dan in years, and obviously, I know all about the band. My brother played with them in Hostile Group, and they had their debut CD release show at the Whiskey A Go Go. They were on the cover of the LA Weekly. I mean, so they have some pretty killer accolades for back then. I always thought that was pretty fucking badass to make the cover of LA Weekly. But they nowadays, he actually, along with the teaching and stuff, he plays with his wife in the Electra Barcos. Oh God, I hope I'm saying that right. And her band. And by the way, congratulations to them for they've got a new baby.
That's right.
And and he plays another band called Time and the Dragon. And man, did you see or hear that cover of that band Time and the Dragon that they did of Bang Bang Shot You Down?
Yes.
Nancy song.
Yeah.
Holy shit, what a great cover. Absolutely. I've been listening to that song a lot, man. That thing kicks ass.
Yeah.
So definitely discovered some cool music from projects he's in now that I didn't even know about, by catching up with him. Yeah, man. So that was number 11, Dan Welby, out in Los Angeles, California. Then we had number 12 with old Scott Blanco here from and I'm looking at it now on the poor Scott. I'm looking at this on our fucking Anchor site. Not only do we not even have his picture, we have everyone else's picture. Scott is literally the photo we used is a bottle. That Vic did was a bottle of paste, and it's pretty fucking funny because we basically talked about Scott making salsa. He takes great pride, and I'm sure he makes great salsa, which I do not, which we discussed. But not only do we not even represent him with his own photo, there's a bottle of paste on the on the episode photo. But then his name is misspelled as well. It says Scott Bonco.
Is it really?
We need to go update it. Yeah. So
Ouch.
Scott Blanco.
Okay. Got some editing to do.
Got some editing to do on your podcast there, Scott. So anyway, Finite Fidelity, one of my favorite Austin bands. They played my festival, Skunk Fest, I think both years. And we've done several shows with them. I really like those guys a lot. And he's just a great musician, man. He plays fucking everything. Guitar. He works at South Austin Music. Works over there. I think he probably does guitar repairs and plays guitar, plays bass, plays drums. And he just did a video I saw on Facebook of him doing all the instruments for the famous Brubeck tune Take 5.
Okay.
So, yeah, man, pretty freaking cool. And yeah.
Oh, he's got a podcast or YouTube channel with what is it? The Pills Nerds, right? The
Electric. That one is actually Electric.
That's right.
Pills Nerds.
Electric
where
Pills
they compare
Nerds.
Beer and guitar pedals.
That's
Yeah.
right. Oh yeah.
Him and his drummer Brian do that. Yeah. So we talked about that. We talked about salsa. We talked about finite music.
Made fun of IPA people.
We made fun of IPAs.
Yeah, that's right.
That all came. I think that's when I started wearing that bird feeder hat that I haven't worn in a while. My beret that I started wearing podcasts. I'm not wearing tonight, but I usually do. And so somehow that and the whole. Well, yeah, because Ryan works at Oak Hill Brewing Company, and so we talked a lot about beer. They know a lot about beer.
Yeah.
And then the whole IPA trend came up, which I love IPAs and. I love a lot of things that happened to trend. But hey, I had a Mohawk. When were Mohawks cool? I can't take credit for that. I did the skunk stripe Mohawk first, even though I probably didn't. I take credit.
You don't like the Cowboys, so you're not in that trend.
Yeah, I like the Seahawks way back, even in the Warren Moon days. I liked the Seahawks before they were a contender. I liked. I've had a beard before beards. Every hipster in the world had a beard.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So. I'm not a trend chaser. I like IPAs though. God damn it. Anyway, that was Scott's episode, which was a lot of fun.
IPAs and salsa. Yep.
Salsa IPAs and Scott Bonko. They just put a new song out too called Wake. I think they got a new record. I don't know if it's out yet. But by the way, we have when we first started this thing and hadn't really had any guests yet. The first few of our guests have ties in music, have done some recordings, but they're not on Spotify. They're not officially released and or whatever. So we didn't really have a lot of music early on, and Vic had put together a playlist of a lot of music and bands that we talked about in the early podcast, right?
Yeah. And
so there's that playlist that you came up with. And then I started compiling one where we just added a song or two songs every week with our guests, sometimes even more if they're in multiple bands. But so like the new Finite Fidelity song is on there. There's an awesome song from Chris Devore, this group called the Swing Demons. It's the only one that I see on Spotify, but it's really cool. I think we got a Dangerous Toys song on there. So all these artists that we were talking about, if they have music released or on Spotify, it's on our playlist. Definitely check that out and like it.
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of great artists, so John Simpson was number 13 on the podcast, and we have his band Maven up there. And then I have a Good Rogering song that he played on in my band. And he's done some solos on my record. I did a guest solo on his Witch Diaries, although I didn't find Witch Diaries on Spotify. But I don't know, man. Take this one, Vic. You know about John a bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've known him since, for a while now. I met him through you, and you know him outside the mask, right? So every time people see him on stage, he's got the witch mask on, and so, and we talked about beer because he was brewing beer, right? So gives guitar lessons, brews beer. The parents drop the kids off; they drink the beer. He's doing welding.
That's right. He started a whole side business. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. He's doing some welding or welding classes. Right. Let's see. What else did we talk about? John gave us a great story at the very end of that podcast that no matter how many times I listened to it during editing, I probably, listened through it like 6 or 7 times, and it brought me to tears every single time. But it's just a great story about when he worked in a bank, and I guess there were some potlucks or something that would happen, and some ladies at the bank said, "Hey, why don't you ever bring anything in?" So he decided to, "Hey, I'll bring some stuff in, make some pinwheels with a whole bunch of jalapenos." And he also had a habit of running too, right? Going out for a run. And so brought the pinwheels in. They were pretty hot. Everybody was eating them. That's all he ate all day from what he was saying. And then he decided to go run around Town Lake. And there's a women's UT rowing team that's traumatized now. It's a great story.
Yeah, I like the way you didn't give it all away. Just absurd amount of pinwheels, goes for a jog in 100-degree weather, ends up traumatizing the women's UT rowing team. I think that's enough to let you know that you should definitely listen to that story.
Yes. Like I would say the last 20 minutes just to be safe. I think that's a good time to jump in.
Last 25 minutes or so of that podcast is I mean, we've had a lot of great guests and we've had a lot of great conversations, but I would say if anyone was going to listen to anything that we've done, that'd be my recommendation. Yeah. Unless you just don't like good old classic old fashioned horrible bodily malfunction stories, then stay away. But if you like to laugh, then that's gold right there.
Yeah. No, the rest of that podcast is great too.
We talked about other stuff. I just don't remember it because that just outshined it. No, I mean, John brews too. John brews beer.
John brews, yeah.
Plays in several bands. He played in a progressive rock band, Maven. They went and played. I can't remember was it Whack and Open Air? I can't remember. It might not have been that. It was some big festival in Europe in 2007 or something. I met him back when I was playing in Quarter Shackle, and we just been friends ever since. Absolutely phenomenal guitar player.
Super humble too. Super nice.
Super humble, nice guy. Brews beer, teaches guitar. He's a welder, and yeah, man, just a phenomenal player. Anything from just progressive metal to jazz. One of my favorite guitar players. So, we talked about all that stuff, and then also John's, exploding guts. And then, so after that was, let's see, what was after that? Ulrich, which I've been talking to Ulrich. So Ulrich has, maybe we can just drop. Oh wait, no, I have whatever the fuck. Anyway, Ulrich has, or just had, who knows when this will come out, he's doing some kind of class on Facebook. You ought to check it out, Vic. Oh, it's at noon Saturday, which is tomorrow.
Okay.
Blah. But and I think he's going to be promoting a master class. He's been doing this whole big master class of like Hendrix stuff, and I'm just seeing him doing lessons and stuff like crazy. Man, that he's a total workhorse.
Yeah.
And when we talked to him, he was producing something in DC, but he now resides in, I think, Turkey. He's all over the place. He was Jose Feliciano's musical director for a while.
That was a really cool story.
Yeah. Toured with him. Really kind of, he really had some insight into true rock star stuff. You know what I mean? Like with what, some of the stuff he went through there. But I mean, he was gracious enough to invite me out to a listening party for another record he produced with a guy here in town a while back. And I've just seen, I heard him on a whim walking down the street, in 2008 or so. Walked in, saw this guy playing this crazy looking amp and just with great chops, and talked to him afterwards. And so he was going to UT at the time or something and studying jazz. So he's held in pretty high regards, total professional musician. And the thing about Ulrich, we've been wanting to get him back on the podcast, but the problem we're having is the time zone difference. That's our big issue. So at some point we're going to get him back on here, but he was only able to pop on for a little bit because he was literally right in the middle of
working.
Of kind of doing some back and forth tracks with somebody. So, but we got a quick little talk with him and got some really cool insights into stuff. Anything else about that one you remember?
He went out to, and it might have been Turkey or another country. He was talking, I think before he dropped off, he was talking about like some meditation retreat where it was just like a week of no talking, nothing. India, just meditating. And I thought that was pretty fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, I ran into him maybe a year ago or so at a premiere for another director we're going to have on the show named Omar Musca, I think, or Musa. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name. And he's over in Europe, but he's a filmmaker. He's done a lot of production stuff with Ulrich and blah blah blah. Total side tangent there. I met him. I had gone to see a premiere. Ulrich was there. We got to talking, and he had just come back from this India retreat where he did this crazy. Yeah, man. So obviously fascinating guy, fantastic musician. We're looking forward to getting him back on the show. After Ulrich was the Invincible Czars.
Who are those guys?
I don't know who the fuck those guys are. So the Invincible Czars, man, they're one of those bands. The funny thing about the Invincible Czars is I've known that name forever.
Yeah,
because they've been around Austin. I think Josh Robbins, the head honcho, kind of founder of that band, who's been the consistent czar from the get go of years of changing rosters and stuff. And they're like a good Rogering in the sense, but even more so, they're super super eclectic, and they have a lot of different musicians involved, which is great. And so I've heard the name for years. I really became aware of them because I think they got a lot of attention and really started getting noticed because they were really weird, quirky Mr. Bungle Zappa influenced rock, band in the beginning, which I love that kind of stuff anyway. But they started getting some traction because they started doing these Christmas shows where they played like rock and swing and country, all these different stylistic versions of like Tchaikovsky. They would do Nutcracker. They did Tchaikovsky's 1812. They used to do that on July 4th. So I would always see them in the Chronicle. I'd always see them advertised for those shows. And they would do Christmas shows every year. And then they started composing for old silent films and composing original scores on these old silent films. And I had no idea they had done as many as they've done. They've done like 9 or 10. I think we're actually working on the 10th film now.
Wow.
And so some of those are available on Soundtrack. And what we started doing during the pandemic was we recorded they always record twice a year, once in the spring and like usually April, and once in October for the Halloween stuff. They always play Nosferatu original score at the Alamo Draft Houses, art cinemas, theaters, playing to the movie. It's really a unique, cool experience and a very cool thing to tour with and be a part of. And just, So they've been doing that for years, doing these sort of bi-yearly tours on these different films. And they've done Nosferatu, the Dr. Caligari is the one we just recorded, completely remote, just released it. It should be on like streaming Alamo Drafthouse sites and some other things, I think, next month. And so we did that whole thing, started a Patreon. We're going to be doing Nosferatu score next year. They've got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Phantom of the Opera, a lot of these old classic horror type, movies. And we started doing singles. We started doing a single series. So we're doing we did at the time of the podcast, had we released Lagrange, the ZZ Top cover yet? I don't think so.
No, you did.
We just released it.
Yeah, because it was it came out right before we did the podcast. Yeah.
Okay. And so that one had Aaron Russell on bass, who's now on tour or doing these circus residency things with the Flying Belinka brothers. So in his absence, another former member of the Invincible Czars, who does a lot of behind the scenes composing, who wrote a lot of Caligari and some other stuff, stepped in and has played bass. And he did. We did a really cool version that just came out of Christmas Time Is Here. That famous.
Oh, the Charlie Brown.
Charlie Brown one. Yeah. Vince something. I can't remember the composer's name, but man, what iconic, wonderful music the Peanut scores.
Yeah.
And everybody knows that. It's an amazing song and arrangement. And we kind of took that a different route that Josh had done years ago with it. I actually highly recommend checking out this album called Christmas Ornaments that's on YouTube by the Czars, a bunch of old rearranged kind of weirdo heavy different versions of all these Christmas songs that they did. And that was originally done. He always wanted to redo it a different way. And it's like a bossa nova. We went in the studio with Beto from, for fuck's sake.
From Brownout.
Brownout. And why can't, Grupo Fantasma. Yeah. Right. We're sitting there talking about his Grammy while we were there.
I think I saw that dude the other day, actually. Because he lives
he's down in Buda.
Yeah.
His studio's down there.
Yeah, I could have. Where did I see that dude? I was probably at the store or something.
I probably did, man. But he did and then we had the percussionist from Brownout play on it. We had featured Katie O'Neill playing flute and singing lead vocals on that song. I playing like electric piano. Josh is playing nylon classical guitar, which was on one of my Seagulls, because I use Seagull guitars.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Guitars. Yeah. You were saying, dude, when you did the thing for Ray's podcast. Speaking of plugging stuff, let's start plugging those. I want to start plugging those companies.
Yeah.
Seagull, Godin, Tragan, Ernie Ball, etc.
Yep.
But man. So I just love the way that single came out. Beto and everyone involved did a great job. I love the mix. I think it's awesome. And so in 2022, or 2021, we're going to be recording Nosferatu. And this is just kind of leaking out. I think Josh might have shared it on Patreon about we're actually doing a Van Halen tribute.
Oh, cool.
So we're rearranging some Van Halen songs. I'm actually going to be singing on one of the Czars tunes, doing some David Lee Roth.
Oh, there you go. You'll be doing the kicks.
I don't know if I can do the kicks without pulling a muscle. But yeah, no, that's pretty cool. I'm stoked about that. Anyway, that was a long podcast. Josh went into the history of the Czars. We had a good portion of the band on. Yeah. We had several guys.
That was a good one.
We talked for a while.
Yeah, like you, I've always heard of the name, and I've always seen it like in the Chronicle, or the Czars are playing here or there. But it was cool to just meet those guys, get a history of the band. Yeah.
After that, we had Tibetan Sky Burial.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh, wow. That was a fun podcast because that was the whole band. Ram Gov is their drummer.
Yep.
Ram Gov has played for several years with a good Rodgering. Obviously, we haven't done anything this year. But we toured together. I've known Ram a long time now, or 4 or 5 years. And there's some crossover in that band. The guitar player, I always think of it as a bass player. The guitar player in that band, Shane Wallen, plays in we'll get to we'll elaborate on Shane Wallen. Old Carolina Wallen. He plays bass for another band, Empty Trail, which the guitar player, singer for that band was in a good Rodgering for a few years, Rick Lambert. So it's like just kind of know Shane through there, and I know that the guy that started Tibetan Sky Burial, Rick, because he was roommates with Ram and Ram's brother Kafir, who own Evil Snail Studios, where we've all rehearsed at, done recordings at, etc. So I've kind of known these guys in various capacities. And Rick had actually hit me up about when around the time their debut EP was coming out, about a video they shot, and he sent me the video, and it was just like, wow, man, this is really, really cool stuff. I really dug it. I love the music, and the video is amazing. So
it's this month, right?
It came out on December 3rd, right? And Memento's the album about 5 stages of grief. It's really cool, conceptual. Like their whole image and branding is really cool.
Yeah.
And so then we actually referred him over to the Chain for PR, and then they got their they just put that video out through Decibel, premiered their video. So yeah, really cool stuff. I highly recommend checking out that new video out and checking them out, especially if you like metal, black metal, post black metal. I mean, I don't know what the fuck all these subgenres are, but it's really cool. And it was recorded at Evil Snail. Rahman Govs Kafir is, recorded, produced it along with I guess Rick. But anyway, why don't you take it from there in terms of what you learned, what I already knew, but what you learned about Shane Wallen?
Well, let's see. He's from Carolina. Apparently he sent you a text with a picture that greatly offended you.
Not one, like every single time I ever got a text from him. That's why I stopped responding to him.
Yeah. Gosh, what?
I think he's a member of some bizarre meme communities that only deal in highly offensive, disgusting material.
Yeah, see, there was a discussion about cats and their buttholes.
Cats the musical and buttholes.
Yeah, Cats the musical and buttholes.
And then Oreos and how they should not be used.
Oreos and
I guess
how they should
put
not.
It that way.
Yeah, there was a reference to using, what was it? Doubling down on folding. What was it? Folding over a
foreskin.
No, the double dog.
Oh, a
yeah.
dildo. Yeah. But that wasn't even Shane. That was Derek, right? Or well, what was funny about that podcast was we did the podcast with the band, and then at the end after we were off, and, not recording. They were like, oh, we've got some friends here. They were all over at Evil Snail hanging out. And so then Rick Lambert from Empty Trail popped in, and then Derek, who was or is in Shane's band Severance, was there also. And there may have been someone else, so I just remember those two guys. And but Derek, I believe, moved down here with Shane, and they used to tour around the East Coast and stuff with their band. So so I know him too. And they're all just very disturbed individuals. So I mean, Shane was talking about running around the woods naked in North Carolina or whatever the fuck he did as a kid. And then they're disturbing, memes fascination the whole
prepared to be Walland. Yeah.
That we came up with the way we need to start hashtagging that more.
Walland.
Yeah. And what was funny was you actually took a sample. I love the way you started that podcast because you took a sample from the after when it was over.
That's right.
And Derek, and we were talking about something, and so the beginning you just
podcast audio,
the post which was the most filthy, vile, God knows what we were talking about. It was really funny, and so that podcast, you were like, "Hey, check this out." After you edited it, and it just starts out with Derek, I think, saying like, "The anus can stretch pretty wide, mind you."
That's right.
So anyway, if you like black metal and disgusting memes
and butt stuff,
then Tibetan Sky Burial is a good one for you.
Yeah.
All right. After that, we had something that we did. I don't think we talked about any butt stuff or dildos or anything offensive with Donald Chapa of
Como County.
Rebels. Yeah. So this is a guy you work with, man. Tell us about that one.
Yeah. So I've known Donald for about almost 4 years now. I've worked with him, and one of the things I learned about him is that he is very big into street art. So much so that, he's just amassed this huge collection of street art that he's kept in his house, that him and his wife started an art gallery down in New Braunfels. And so we just talked about how he got into it. I think he grew up back down in the valley, listening to some old school rock, some metal, eventually moving into the punk genre, skateboarding, things like that. And I think how he got into it was like looking at the show art, right? And, fast forward to now, a lot of these guys that did those show posters, all the show art, they're pretty famous in their own right. And so a lot of the art that they've done, they're selling pretty well. And so he's just curated and collected a whole bunch of this art from all these different artists. Basically, he says that, if it's music that I listen to, that's the stuff that I'm selling, that curating and selling, right? Things that I like, things, kind of reflect the music that I like, listen to. So that was a really cool podcast. If you haven't been to, his website, I would highly recommend it. Check it out. A lot of the artwork that I have at my house is basically just browsing his website and then going to a shop and picking it up, and then usually just bullshitting for a couple of hours, going and get a couple of whiskeys and then coming back home. So
some of the art behind you right now is from his shop. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's from the shop?
The Princess Leia one up, over my shoulder here. That kind of that cool retro from the Return of the Jedi. I've got the one that's above that, the Ice Cream Man. That's and I can't remember any of the artists' names, but that's from a guy out of Los Angeles, some Chicano street art. The blue one behind me is from this Dutch artist who does. She assembles her artwork in a collage, so she basically sets up this canvas and just puts all these different pieces together like a mosaic, essentially. And layers it all together and makes prints out of it. So there's a couple of more that I have upstairs. I got some concert posters from them, like a Clutch show. Actually, I think it's the Clutch show that we went to at Emo's when they were touring for Strange Cousins from the West.
I wonder if that's the show I found a knife on the floor at.
That might have been it. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen Clutch so many times. Very first show I saw when I moved to Austin, man, at Emo's in 2004. Yeah.
Oh, the old Emos. Yeah.
That was right when Blast Tyranny came out. God damn it, dude. It was amazing.
Such a good album.
Yeah. They're all good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're all good. I do like, what was that?
No, go ahead.
You're going to say we need to do a Clutch show. I agree. Anyway.
No, I was going to say, like, we very easily could just do a whole Clutch podcast, like, for real. Yeah. I'll go ahead and hit up my boy Neil Fallon. And I know a guy who knows Neil Fallon because he knows everybody. I'll hit him up.
Maybe we can find the Machine and talk to him or something, because he did 3 of their albums. He did was it Blast Tyrant?
Actually, that's a really good idea because I talked to my buddy Jeff Henson, who plays with Duel, and I played a few shows with them maybe around 2013 with his band Meganaut at the time, and I played bass actually for a few shows in that band, and he ended up recording. He worked on Earth Rocker. Machine's place right after.
Yep.
I think pretty soon after. Shit, man. I want to say he actually helped build some parts of that studio, like right after Machine relocated here from. I think he was in New York or Jersey or something.
Yeah.
And he came down here to Dripping Springs. So I haven't talked to. I briefly have talked to him a few times, but I have not talked to him forever. Yeah, he'd be a great guest, man. Either one of those guys. I mean, I talked to Jeff about coming on here at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, Machine would be a really cool guy to have on here too. We could definitely talk cool. Clutch for days.
Yeah, because Machine did Blast Tyrant, he did Earth Rocker, and then he did Psychic Warfare.
That's right. He did, and that's the one Jeff worked on was Psychic Warfare. Those all 3 of those albums are fucking awesome, man. I love all 3 of those albums.
Yeah. Anyway, so so I got a poster from the show we went to at New Emo's. And then a couple of other ones. One from a guy called Brother Tooth. It's basically a skeleton riding another skeleton horse. That was a really cool. That was a fun podcast. I mean it's really cool to see that dudes that are folks that are just doing show art, just making their way and just becoming a little more famous.
Making their way any way they know how.
That's right. Yeah. But, I mean, that's a good one. Like I said, I would recommend checking out the website for, the art gallery. Let's see.
Yeah, man, I did that not right after the podcast, and then you had some new Metallica poster, old school stuff.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of really cool stuff in that gallery. So
I think he's got,
definitely.
I think I saw some new Metallica ones, and then, man, I don't know. He posts a lot on Instagram, so a lot of the new stuff they get in before they go on sale, he'll post pictures of them. So that's how I nabbed some of these pictures. Like he would
Comal County Rebels is
Comal
who you want to look for there, yeah.
So he'll post them on Instagram, and I'll text him, and I'm like, hey, I'll buy these. So
we'll get to her in a minute here, but when we get to Pearl, we got to remember to plug her art too, man. She's got a lot of killer art as well.
That's right.
Or original art that she does. She's not a dealer per se, but she.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many different musicians and artists I'll find too, or like end up being like phenomenal painters and stuff as well.
Yeah.
So after Donald Chapa and is it Chapa?
Yeah.
And the Comal County Rebels, we had Bobby Book out, who I've known many years. My brother used to play bass with him.
Actually, before we go into Bobby's, I think Donald listened to the podcast, but he'd never really watched the videos on YouTube, and he thought you were like a Tex-Mex. He was like, I wonder why that is. I don't know. He said, just listen to his voice. I thought he was like a Chicano or a Tejano dude. And then, he pulls up a video. He's like, oh man, he's white.
I mean, and look, that's fine. I don't have anything against that. First of all, I don't know where he's getting that from. I don't, but I mean, is that, how do I even go here without sounding racist? Right. I mean, do Mexicans have a different sounding voice than white people?
I don't know.
Not really.
No.
I mean, you've got a great voice. But I've become horribly self-conscious about about my voice now because of this podcast. But I here I am using this microphone Michael Jackson sang on in Thriller, and I somehow sound like a little schoolgirl. It really pisses me off. And you sound like all robust and manly. So I guess if he thinks I'm going to make every Mexican sounds like you, Vic. And so I'll take that as a compliment. And I guess he thought I sounded sultry and robust or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, that was awkward. Anyway, let's move on.
Bobby.
Speaking of awkward, Bobby Bookout straight up came on the fucking podcast in a robe.
Robe and no pants.
Robe. He was just
he was very relaxed.
All relaxed. Very relaxed. And that was to date. I think we've had some that top that now, but to date, that might have been the longest podcast we had at the time. We talked for Bobby forever.
That's right.
Man, great songwriter. Always surrounds himself with phenomenal musicians, and his production on both of his albums are incredible. Honestly, I think of what's been so cool about this. I've listened. I mean, chatting with all these people, and a lot of these people we know and friends and colleagues and blah blah blah, and it's always fascinating chatting with them. But and everyone has great sounding stuff. But there are a few artists in particular where I've come across their stuff. I mean, I played with Bobby. I've heard his stuff. I know it's good. But revisiting stuff, and when you're kind of listening to a lot of different music, some songs just stick out. I mean, Ulrich blew me away. I know he's great, but some of his music, I was like, Jesus Christ, everything about this song. This got this song called Running on Empty. And it's just like everything about it, the melodies, the lyrics, the production, it's just fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Bobby's production is amazing. Pearl Z, which we'll get to, like her fucking single is fucking sick, man.
Yes.
So there's some really, really good. And then you go to Spotify and it's like 4 fucking listeners. Like, God damn it, dude. This shit is fucking quality music, man. That's why I really want to push these playlists. It's like, this is good, badass shit. I mean, and so props to Bobby on just the care that he takes and the musicians that he hires that play with him, that record with him, and then on the production of his
quality
stuff
is through the
really
roof.
Great.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I really enjoyed listening to that stuff. Because I think when I was putting together the podcast and doing the intro and outro, and I think I mentioned that I'm like, dude, the production on this song is just freaking phenomenal. But and I don't remember which songs we used, but.
We actually talked about him some. I think we talked about a lot of different music. We talked about the musicians, guys like Cale Richardson, Keenan Levick, Blake Atwell, all phenomenal guitar players who have toured and owned studios and play. I mean, Cale plays with Eli Young. Keenan used to play with, goddamn, who did he play with? Some big Texas country guy. Blake owns a studio in 1916, which Good Rodgering's done some recording at. Rumor has it Willie Blue Balls did a song out there, but he's so fucking drunk he hasn't gotten it released yet.
Oh, man, that
guy. He's a mess. But there's, I mean, he was talking about Brennan Temple, I think, was playing drums on some stuff, and just all kinds of. There was somewhere else I was going to go with that.
Well, we also talked about
hip hop and stuff. Some of Bobby's influences. Yeah,
we talked about that. We talked about. school, right? Like they're
North Plains College.
Yeah, South Plains. That's right.
South Plains College. He was in the Navy when he was on their music school. Yeah.
South. Yeah. Yeah. And then
which is up in your neck of the woods originally.
Yeah, just Levelland outside of Lubbock. Yep.
So I mean, anyway, Bobby, if for no other reason, you get to see that dude sit there all buff in a robe for 2.5 hours. I think if you're a girl, like it's probably, or anyone who likes dudes, I would say
in robes. Yeah.
Yeah, and dude, if you like dudes in robes, Bobby's podcast is a recommendation. And also really good produced music. So there's Bobby's new synopsis: dude in robe first, musician second. Also, man, Bobby is an entrepreneur. He owns a business with his wife, Busy Bee Preschool up in Manor.
Yep.
And he's also was talking about. I've kind of seen the process, and we've talked about it over the last year or so, just here and there. I've kind of kept up with some things that I think he's due to be opening a bar at some point.
Yeah. Yep.
With Ben Davis who's everybody knows as an Austin musician from Dirty Dog Bar on 6th Street. He used to co-own and run that bar. Ben's a great guy. I don't have anything bad to say about that dude, man. He has so much respect for musicians. We've had like with so many musicians, so many late nights hanging out, talking, shooting the shit. He treats guys well. I always really liked doing business with him when he ran that place. And now he's a co-owner at Come and Take It Live, which is like the place if you're an Austin rock metal band, and they have all kinds of national acts. And I mean, so I have no doubt that when this bar that they're talking about, it's going to be killer, man. So that's on the horizon at some point too.
Looking forward to that.
After that, we had Mark Sean from Blackheart Saints.
Yep.
Another great band, Austin band, just straight up rock and roll. I mean, these guys are like the definition of a rock and roll band, right? They do all I don't even know how else to put it. They're just a fucking rock and roll band. You could, like they're doing it right. So, and they've just like been kicking ass, man. They opened up for Steel Panther. They've opened up for countless national acts. They've got a couple EPs and a full length, 3 or 4 releases out. Super tight band, always doing rock and roll the right way. And so we talked about, some touring stuff with Mark. We talked about their pimped out porn van that they used to have with the old VCR player that ran old pornos. And, and then,
their videos are pretty entertaining as well.
Yeah. We talked about their videos, and the guy that does those, Taylor Fredericks, was an old friend. I think, did Mark say, Mark is from Indiana, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Mark's from Indiana.
Because they talked about the Sweetwater stuff, right?
Sweetwater. Well, yeah. So they were right when we did that interview. Mark was about to fly out to go to. They did some kind of master class thing at Sweetwater Studios in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Yeah. And I mean, Sweetwater now, for anyone who's a musician, that's a massive company online. You can buy any kind of gear. And I guess he'd kind of known them from when it was getting started up. And I believe he was even saying the CEO is a super cool, humble, nice dude.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. So they got invited out there to do this big recording thing at the Pro Studio. And there's a huge facility that Sweetwater had. Sounded amazing. I saw some of the photos and stuff after the fact of that process.
I need to check those out. I hadn't realized until he talked about it how massive Sweetwater is. Like the campus, the way he described it. It's like a tech campus.
Yeah.
Small community. Yeah.
So that'll probably be a cool thing to check out. And but yeah, and their videos from Taylor Frederick, I can't remember. So Ian, the guy who plays bass in that band, is the second guitar player in Finite Fidelity.
Oh, okay.
That we were talking about with Mr. Pace, Scott Blanco, and
Bonko.
Yeah, Bonko. But Ian moved down here from Wisconsin. All these guys tie together. It's so funny how I've known all these guys for years. And, like Ian and Rick from Empty Trail are roommates, or as far as I know, they're still roommates. Ian came down here more or less because of Jeff, the guy from Meganaut who worked with Machine, who plays in Duel, so everyone's all kind of tied together because he used to say Meganaut used to tour up there and he would see them in Wisconsin. So, and Rick Lambert's from Wisconsin. So a lot of these guys, just like, it's funny how you have these little pockets, right? I've met a lot of people from the South Plains College, like all these phenomenal musicians that have gone on to tour with these big country acts and stuff. they've all played with Bobby book out, you know what I mean? And then a lot of these guys, I've met a lot of guys down here now too from Wisconsin. So it's kind of cool.
I just remembered something about Bobby's podcast. There was a story about touring up in Lubbock and you passed out on a couch or something. You stood up too fast or.
Yeah. It's one of the only times I think that's ever happened to me. We did 2 shows. We actually played at South Plains College and, met his producer, Scott. I can't think of his last name. I feel bad. Who obviously is a great producer.
Yeah.
That worked on Bobby's records. Because he would kind of record back and forth at 1916 Blake Atwell studio here. And I think now he's also got a little home recording studio with some really good gear we talked about. And then Lubbock, but I think the guy up in Lubbock is the dude that mixed it.
Okay.
Met that guy. He played guitar. I think he played guitar too. So it was us 2 playing guitar on that. And then we played a bar gig the next night. But so anyway, we crashed at a friend's house or something. And yeah, man, Bobby's, everyone's just kind of hanging out in this big living room area and sleeping bags and couches and stuff. And I stood up and blacked out. I've never had that happen. I literally saw stars and fell over. And I remember Bobby was just like, dude, are you okay? Yeah. So, and it's Bobby in his robe. That's what got me.
That's what he was wearing his robe and you were like, oh my gosh.
Dude, actually back to Mark Sean's that one of the best parts of that fucking podcast was we started talking about Alex Jones and Mark Sean does a spot on Alex Jones impersonation.
That's right.
Perfect Alex Jones impersonation.
Prison Planet.
When we talked about Prison Planet and Protein Powder and Hillary Clinton and the overthrow of the lizard people and fuck, man, listen about that podcast just for that alone. That was great stuff. Yeah, so that was number 19.
Yep.
And okay, and then number 20,
Rudy.
We had Rudy Cervantes, who I've known from when I was living in College Station, where my parents are. Right before I came back from LA and before I moved here, I was kind of going around and playing open mics, and there was this surprisingly enough, of all places in College Station, Texas, there was a fucking amazing open mic at this place called Salty Dog, which was a huge bar. And I don't know how long it lasted, but I remember maybe going for 6 months to a year of going up there and playing. And I met some great, whoever the cream of the crop was, man, a lot of times they'd be up there. And I met Rudy that way. And then we started playing together. And so we would just always go up there, and we basically ended up doing a set where we kind of closed it out a lot of the times. And then so we played music together a lot over the years. We talked about my paper route, smoking weed and, delivering newspapers in the middle of the night to fucking nowhere, Navasota, where apparently Chuck Norris lives. Hanging out with Guy, providing commentary while you try to flirt with a girl. Guy Laverick coming down and having flatulence while I was trying to flirt with a gas station employee. My horrible body odor that drove Rudy. I mean, it was so bad. I had to stop him by deodorant and a new shirt. Weird stuff. Interesting time. Rudy also rivaled John Simpson with one of the greatest emergency shit stories I've ever heard in my life. It was fucking amazing. So the end of that podcast is also quite well worth it if you're into, bodily malfunction stories. But yeah, Rudy. So Rudy, I knew him as a musician way back when he was teaching guitar. We were super young. I was probably 24 and he was like 20, 21. Yeah. And but then he ended up going up to Dallas or North. Is that where North Plains is? Right near Dallas? Is that the Northwest? Northwest? I don't know.
The North
somewhere.
Texas. Yeah.
And he went to school somewhere up there. It's literally in the synopsis, and I'm just not looking at it. But he, so then he went to school there. I went to film school, and now he's been making, working on documentaries. He does, photography. He's in that whole mix of things. And he, I think it's released now. I know they did some kind of thing. It was supposed to be when we were plugging it on the podcast, but then the premiere date got pushed back. But and this is something I learned. I'm sure you did too. Right here in Austin, the iHeart or I Love Video store is apparently the biggest video store in the world, and he did a documentary on them. Right. So that is something that you can check out now. I need to go follow up on that because I know they were plugging it the other day or a few weeks ago. Yeah, they were going to do like a limited release or something, right? Small release. Yeah. I gotta follow. I just thought that was really interesting. It was a cool thing that he chose. I remember when he had hit me up coming down here years ago, or a couple of years. Who fucking knows? doing that. We never hooked up, but I remember when he was in town shooting. And so yeah, he does that, or he just finished doing that. Shits his pants, used to play guitar a lot. Anyway, that's Rudy Cervantes. Probably had some bad Arnold Schwarzenegger puns and accents.
Oh, that's right. We talked about
a lot of old movies.
That's right.
We talked about a lot of
Commando.
bad classic movies, because that's what we used to do. That we'd do the paper route. We'd usually a lot of times there would be a gig or something, at 10 or 11. I'd go do my paper route from like 1 to 5 or 6, and then go back over to his place, and we'd play fucking video games or watch shit movies, at Dead Dawn, So we talked about a lot of old fun, like bad great movies, right?
Yeah. Just the old action movies. We talked about, was it Verhoeven? We talked about a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah. We talked about a lot of film stuff on that podcast.
A lot of film stuff.
So yeah, fun. if you're a film guy, like that podcast number 20, the Rudy Cervantes one is a good one. After that, we had Pearl Z.
Yes.
Now Pearl Z played the first year of Skunk Fest with a band called Brown Kids, and that's how. I mean, I probably knew the name through various outlets, but I mean, I just remember her from Brown Kids initially, and reaching out to her, booking them. Yayo from Kiss Guy fame was playing drums in that band. It was a 2-piece, and she played guitar and sang, and they fucking owned it, man. They were an afternoon band the first year of Skunk Fest, which was like an all day event pretty much. And I got a lot of compliments on that band. A lot of people wanted to see them back, but then they just vanished, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, what's going on with Pearl? Well, she's her single "Silence Your Mind," which is not on. Yeah, it's not on Spotify, but it's on Apple Music, and I cannot recommend that song enough. Like the production, every single thing about that song is fucking amazing. I was just floored, and I cannot wait to work with Pearl on our collaboration of Boot Puke.
That's right.
So.
That's right.
Yeah.
Is she going to let you play her guitar, the Telecaster?
Well, she hasn't actually agreed to play Boot Puke yet, but it's going to happen. So my lawyers are contacting her lawyers. It's a process.
It's a process.
Yeah. So, but anyway, Pearl's really, really, really talented young lady. And not on top of the music. So she also plays with Kalu and the electric joint, and I put another one. So I couldn't put "Silence Your Mind," her single, on the Spotify playlist because it's not on Spotify. But I definitely highly recommend going to Apple Music or wherever else and finding that song. And
YouTube has it.
Fucking amazing.
Yeah,
there's a video on YouTube too.
Yeah, I've listened to that song so many times. It's great.
It's so good. And then man, I don't know if you listen to any of the electric joint, man. That shit's badass too. Really cool. So I put one of those tunes on there. All really good stuff. She's playing with them. In fact, I think she has a show coming up on the 19th.
Okay.
At Empire Control Room, I believe, if that's still happening. So that's something to look out for. Pearl Z here in Austin, Texas, Empire Control Room. I think December 19th. Go listen, buy her music. Buy any of these people's music, goddammit.
Yes.
So let's see. Yeah, and then that Boot Puke came from a really funny story about Pearl going out and getting hammered and puking in an Uber. So that was fun stuff. We had a good time with that. But Pearl's also an amazing artist. She started when the pandemic hit. She started painting and stuff. And you can find her stuff. What is it called? Redbubble? It's
Redbubble.
/ Pearl Z.
Yeah, I think you could do a Google search for Redbubble or Pearl Z art or something like that, or maybe both. It should pull up. But I think that gives you can buy her artwork and put it on different merch, like T-shirts, cups, things like that. So yeah, really cool stuff.
Yeah, I really want to. I will buy some of her artwork at some point. Okay, so after Pearl, we had Bull Diego Evelo. Just what a horrible attempt at pronouncing that name. Bull Diego Evelo. Fuck it, whatever. Bull Diego is what I call him. Bully Los Buffaloes. I play guitar in his band. I've been playing with him for a few years now. I've done a few singles with him. And at the time of the show, I don't think it was out. We had just shot a video for the song "Alone with the King," which was Bull, on a whim, was camping in Georgetown. He's just been camping through half this pandemic.
Yeah.
And living out in the woods like an animal. He got a wild hair up his ass. Went to Memphis as a huge Elvis Presley fan. Went to Memphis, went to Graceland, it had just opened. There was fucking nobody there. So he basically got a private tour of Graceland, had this incredible, intense moment, being in the presence of of his idol and all this and that, and saw the house and walked to the house and the grave and the whole thing, and got super inspired, wrote lyrics, wrote this song, came back down, hit us all up. And 15 seconds later we had a song. Like it happened fast. And it was cool. It's an awesome song. Yeah. I love it. And the video is kick ass, man. That video, now it came out, I want to say like November 27th or something. I don't remember.
It wasn't too long ago.
It's got like 60 something thousand views on Facebook, man.
Oh, wow. It wasn't that long ago that you were out there shooting that. You were out in Lockhart, right?
Lockhart at the Gaslight Baker Theater, I think it's what it's called. And everyone involved in that, holy shit, man, they knocked it out of the park. I was blown away. Like, I just felt good when we went and shot that video. And I've been involved in two of Bull's videos, and they're both badass. But this one moved so smooth and so fast.
It was really fast.
Dude, we killed it. I mean, we shot the whole video in 6 hours. The band was only 3 hours maybe. We were done for the band. And they did the stuff. Yeah.
So, I mean, you talked about the shoot going fast, but I mean, and it seemed like it was just a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. Like all the post-production and it's released. I mean, that was super quick.
Super fast.
Had a lot of cheese plate, big old cheese plate there, right?
Well, they didn't have a cheese plate, which was a little annoying because, I'm a rock star. I demand cheese plates at all of my video shoots. But yeah, well, the first video I did with Bull, I mean, I sat around for like 7 hours. I mean, to be fair, like it was a huge thing in this big church, and they had like 1,000 candles and all this logistical shit. And they were like, yeah, shooting starts at 8:30 or whatever. I was like, I like hauled ass from work. I got off at like 8. I hauled ass over. I was a few minutes late, and then sat around till 2 a.m, which often happens. I've been on movie sets and extras and video shoots, and usually you're sitting around a lot. Everything runs behind. Man. But they had massive amounts, copious amounts of cheese and chips and unhealthy snacks. And hey, I'm not that hard. So for me, I was like, yeah, dude, there's cheese. I'm going to eat all this fucking cheese and go take a nap. Just let me know when the band plays. Well, this other one was so fast and efficient. It was great. What were you saying?
No, I was going to say that the one with the cheese plate at the church, he talked about having to buy all those little candles and place them and light them and just buy all the stuff, all the things that you don't think about that he has to do.
Yeah. That's a kick-ass video too. I mean, I'm playing one of my Tragans in that video. It's, so I'm playing a Tragan guitar in that video, and it's for the single, this is a Spanish phrase, help Vic. It's he actually said it in English. Why can I never remember the name of this song?
I just saw that the other day.
Muertos, something or others. God damn it.
Hasta something.
Whatever the fuck it. Anyway.
I was trying to see if I could find it on Spotify here.
But it's a kick-ass video. And then the latest video I actually played a Gibson in because Bull has a deal with Gibson guitars now. So
there you go.
We always play Gibson guitars for all that. We played we talked about the NAMM show and playing the Gibson booth for that, which was unbelievably amazing, and just hanging out, quote unquote, backstage with all these Gibson artists, in the lounge. That was really cool stuff. Really cool experience.
We talked about the Gibson room with Pearl too, I think.
Did we?
I think.
Oh, what we talked about with Pearl was the Gibson room here in Austin, I think.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, Bull is, I think we're going to do a live stream from there early next year at some point, actually. Yeah, the Gibson room here, if you haven't been, is a great place. It's really cool. A really cool place.
Would not mind checking that out.
Anyway,
hasta que la muerte nosotros. Let's see.
Yeah, what is it in English, right?
Trying to find the entire title because it cuts off.
Sorry, Bull.
It's hasta que la muerte nos
de la parte, like something about the dead departed or something. Anyway, Bull has songs in the Mayans TV show.
There you go. Yeah.
I don't know the names of them, but they're in the TV show. And we did a live show. That album came out early this year, and then the single just came out last month in the video. recorded it. All of that was recorded at Mesa Recording Studios here in town with Rob Hinton.
Till death do us part is what the
Till
English,
death do us part, for fuck's sake. Yeah, easy.
Hasta que la muerte nos separe.
Yeah, I actually want to get the Invincible Czars in that theater. It's such a great place, man. I need to follow up with those guys. They were very, very cool. It's a fantastic theater, and everyone involved in that just killed it. And that video is amazing. It's awesome. It's a cool song, cool video, and it's doing really well, man.
I like how the guy in the Elvis costume, or the guy playing Elvis, is just kind of lurking in the background.
Yeah, the ghost of Elvis. It's funny too because when we shot it, you basically we get on stage and they do, okay, we did. It's really funny too because we had recorded the song. It came together so fast. It's not like we've done any rehearsals. No one's been in a room together. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so I don't even know if I ever actually saw Bull through the entire process until the video shoot, because it was like I got here's the demo, right? Laid down guitar ideas, sent it back, and then they sent me, okay, here's the drums and the bass.
Right.
Then I laid down my guitars, So, and Bull and I basically just talked on the phone, and it's like, well, here's what I came up with. What do you think? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so then, a few weeks had gone by. I hadn't touched it, and I think it was the case with all of us. Like Costamos, the drummer, had a fill. Jonas, the bass player, has a fill. I had my guitar. So, and we're all basically like on the first few takes, we're kind of like, cool. Yeah, let's do another take, because I'm still kind of like relearning what I made up on, what I played. And so so I think like the first few takes of the song were us basically like reacclimating ourselves with our parts. But you did like close-ups here, this camera, that camera. Then you have a guy walking around the stage for a few. Then we had some long shots. So we probably did, I don't know, 8 to 10 different takes or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then they did, and then the band took off, and then they did all the Elvis stuff. But yeah, man. So
now, are you guys actually playing during the shoot, or is it just track? Okay.
Oh no. Well, yeah. I mean, it's a track. We're playing to the track, but we're obviously, we're obviously playing the song.
Okay.
We're not speaking it. So, but I think when we tracked it, I don't think it was a final mix. It was, did the video. It was pretty close though.
Okay.
So. Yeah, man. That was cool. That just sounded so great. It was fun. Okay, after Bull Diego, number 22, number 23 was holy fuck. So much history with this fucking maniac. We had
that was a great podcast. I enjoyed that.
It was, man. It was great. It was actually Chris Farrell, who I've known for years and years. I met him when I played in Quarter Shackle. He is eccentric to say the least, and but I mean, so Chris is a great drummer. He just, at the time when I met him, or soon thereafter, like when I first joined Quarter Shackle in 2006, they had already kind of been through some shit and several guitar players. But when I joined, there was kind of I think a breath of fresh air, wind in the sails. We really killed it the first little bit. We wrote some stuff real fast. We put out a couple of singles. Mm-hmm. They had a great demo that I found on, MySpace. This was back in 2005, That's how I found them. And I was looking for a band. I'd kind of done the Pitchfork thing, Chris Devore and a bunch of guys. And it was a cover band with some few originals, lasted a little while. Right after that, I hopped into Quarter Shackle. And that was really me. Like, that led to a lot of other things for me. Meeting musicians, getting out on the scene, playing all the back room Once Upon a Time, playing, Dirty Dog, obviously, and all the known bars in Austin. And we played with great, great, great bands like Dave's Not Here, who will have Rob Do, who now works with Alex Jones on the show. We'll talk about that. Adam Shedd, one of the greatest guitar players I've ever seen in my life, played with that band. They were a phenomenal band. Dave's Not Here. Did you ever see those guys? So fucking good.
I don't think I ever did. I remember hearing about them a lot, but I don't think I ever made it out to one of their shows. Band.
Yeah, go check that out on Spotify. Dave's Not Here, man. It's pretty crazy shit. Anyway, so we used to play with them, and Lost Rain, which Keenan was in, who's played with Bobby and Casey Painter and old friends like that. Patrick Durand, who played some bass on some various things I've been a part of over the years. Blah blah blah. And anyway, so that happened, and then the band just, like I've always said, if anyone knew who that band was, it would be a great behind the scenes or behind the music story, because it's got all the ingredients of the absolute fucking absurdity. Just the cast of characters, the absurd, just the ridiculousness of it all. To this day, it still lives on, actually. I don't want to upset myself and go into it. But anyway, so there was that whole history. And funny enough, though, even despite all that, through that, when we transition drummers for the first time of many in Good Roger, and Chris Farrell played with us, recorded our second album, which was frankly a nightmare. And we played a lot of shows. I will give Chris credit though. Like we some of the biggest shows and best shows of Good Rogering ever played. And we've had a lot of great shows in the last few years with the recent rosters that I've had have been, great. It's been the most fun I don't know. It's been great. But in the Chris Farrell era, we definitely had some really cool shows. So, which we had John Simpson, the Witch, on stage, and played some of the stuff during South by and all that kind of shit. So, anyway, we kind of talked about that. But Chris's main gig natodays, and we actually played another band with this guy Jeremiah Houston together, doing country music and all the West Texas stuff, and so we played a lot together over the years, and we've had an on and off relationship. But but Chris, really nowadays, more than anything, I mean, he's a bladesmith, and that's what he originally moved to Austin for, and kind of fell back into drumming because he grew up as a teenager in early 20s or whatever, doing that exclusively in New York for years and years. So he came here to study that and forging, and got a business up and running. It's called Feargal Blades. And then he was on the very first season, second episode of Forged in Fire, which he was the winner.
Yeah.
So he's gone viral in a cracked.com article. So he's really made a lot of headway with his blade, forging bladesmith endeavors. So we talked about that, and
it's a cool episode.
I don't know what else we talked about.
Yeah, we talked about that. It was cool. I mean, just it's crazy. He moved down to Texas with no intention of playing music. He didn't even bring a kit. Like, he had to go buy all that stuff again and get back into music. And I think now he says he just has his kit set up in his workshop, and he just kind of beats on it. He doesn't play gigs anymore or anything like that. He just strictly works on blades, which is
the funny
cool.
thing about it was we were talking about some of his kits and what he recorded on and this and that, but he had a, after a Good Rogering, because he played with this country, we were doing those two gigs at the same time for a little while, but then he continued to play with this dude Jeremiah Houston for years, and then Jeremiah had a kid and moved back, I guess, to be closer to his family, or for whatever reason moved to Colorado, and everything just always stayed in his trailer. He had a big horse trailer or whatever, and all the stuff just stayed in, all the gear just stayed in, and he just moved to fucking Colorado with Chris's drums. And Chris was telling us he literally just got his drums back after years that they're just sitting in this dude's place in Colorado. So I mean, and that was an interesting podcast. Chris is an interesting guy. We had a lot of fun catching up and talking on that thing. And that's one thing I do like about all the different musicians I've played with. And I see this in the Invincible Czars with Josh too. Some guys will come and go, and it's like things happen. Someone has a kid, life changing things. You have fallouts. You get back. I've been through with guys from Quarter Shackle, Good Rogering. You have relationships like family or marriage or something. You have these relationships. Can be very intense. Can be, but things that's really cool to see guys come back in the fold with the Invincible Czars, right? To kind of reconnect with guys that I played with over the years, and I'm glad that for the most part I don't feel like, or I hope I don't have any like real super enemies or animosity with people, but I've done a lot of different music with a lot of different people, and despite some of the yelling and screaming and that happens sometimes, everyone's kind of still cool, so that was cool catching up there. And after that, we had our longest podcast today until tonight, apparently, which I think we were planning on 30 minutes, and like 4.5 hours later, we're just coming up on our last two podcasts here. So Eric Allen Livingston came on the show, and this fucking guy, shit, man, what a character, dude.
This one was such a cool podcast too.
Yeah. So I met Eric because of a very, very random occurrence where I went and saw, and I just thought this was ironic that I've been in Austin for all these years. And I go to San Francisco. The very first day I was ever in San Francisco, I made this connection accidentally, but it's just kind of cool. I have such a love for San Francisco, the Bay Area, the culture, the music that has come out of both San Francisco and then also up the Northwest, and obviously Seattle, for fuck's sake. But that whole region, I've always identified so much with that music, from the Seattle stuff and the grunge that labeled it. I mean, there is so much of that stuff that resonates with me hard, as big than anything musically. And I have a ton of influences, and but Mr. Bungle, who's from Eureka, Mike Patton's one of my biggest influences. They're right up this road from San Francisco. Metallica obviously went to the Bay Area because LA was treating them like shit. And so they're known for their San Francisco. I want to say the Melvins were even down there, or they're in Seattle. Obviously everybody knows that Chains and Soundgarden and all the big Seattle stuff, but that whole Bay Area thing and all the history there. So I go to San Francisco because my brother, longtime bassist, co-founder of A Good Rogering, got married, moved out there. And now I bounce back and forth there because my fiance is out there. And but before that, even I had gone out there to visit my brother for the first time. I mean, in like 2 years, I had never been out there, and he had been living out there. Blah blah blah. What a bunch of boring backstory. So anyway, I go out there. we go to this Dead Cross show, which is Mike Patton from a zillion fucking bands. If you don't know Mike Patton, then fuck you. Justin Pearson from The Locust and Retox and a zillion other bands. Michael Crane from the Cunts, and all these guys are, and then Dave Lombardo. Everybody knows Dave Lombardo, Slayer, Phantom Moss with Mike Patton. And anyway, we go see the supergroup Dead Cross, which I had seen also in Austin. We're just sitting there, and my brother's a little worried that Patton's going to hit on him because he had gotten fondled at the last Dead Cross show at Berkeley. Literally, it's on YouTube, and and so we're sitting there, and there's this girl standing there, and I'm like, hey, cool shirt. She was wearing a Typo Negative shirt. We get to talking. This girl's name is Zero, and she's got a Typo Negative cover band, right? And she's the singer in that band. So we get to talk, and she's super cool. And she basically starts telling me about her buddy, Eric Livingston, who does the artwork for Dead Cross. So he did several of the Dead Cross, if not all of them. I don't know if he did all of them, but he did several of the Dead Cross videos. He did the Dead Cross artwork, the famous skeleton, all these iconic things. I don't know if he had worked with Patton prior to that, or I think we were talking to him. I think he had been friends with Justin Pearson for years, and they did some stuff together down in San Diego, where he's from. But, but anyway, he got on board with Dead Cross, and since then he's just been killing it, with Ipecac, with Mike Patton's label. And he did the, this amazing flyer for the Mr. Bungle's live stream that they did on Halloween, which was kind of a paying homage to the old Halloween posters of the 1978 or 79 John Carpenter movie. I think he did some of the packaging for the Bungle stuff. I can't remember. Right. Oh, well, he's also did the a Mr. Bungle video.
Right.
He did, and now he's doing. A lot of people don't even know this is happening yet. Like Tomahawk, another super group with Mike Pat, Dwayne Dennison from Jesus Lizard. I'm drawing a blank. John Stanier from Helmet. And they've had a few different bass players. I think Kevin Romanis might have been in that band. I just listened to Hepatitis' whole catalog the other day. Kevin Romanis, the bass player, used to play with the Melvins, and his wife actually. I got some artwork from her for A Good Rogering. Eric Allen Livingston. Anyway, after meeting this girl and talking about Eric, I hit him up. I was looking at his work, hit him up, and he did This Is Death Metal animated video for A Good Rogering, and then subsequently referred me to JP Justin Pearson and the Chain for PR for that. So I think I don't remember. I think it was Metal Injection or something that we premiered that video in. But and those guys are great guys, man. I really have appreciated. These are dudes they're busy guys that are working with really high up. I mean, these are like the pinnacle to me. Mike Patton and Ipecac is like that's it for me. And so it's cool to know these guys that work in such close proximity with that caliber of musician are at that level that are very, very cool, very humble, very responsive and receptive. And I appreciate that, because sometimes you get guys that like to play rock star and you're like, bro, you live in a fucking duplex in Austin. Go fuck yourself. Like you're nobody. You know what I'm saying? Like you're a fucking D-lister. These guys are like making fucking, touring and making videos with Mike Patton, and they're cool as fuck. So anyway.
And speaking of touring, Eric was talking about doing the light shows, right? Programming all the lights and doing the setups and the tear downs, working with the crews, things like that. So
it's crazy how busy he is, man. Like it's crazy. On top of doing all that, artwork and flyers and videos, which is an extremely time-consuming endeavor that he's done for these Ipecac bands and a bunch of other stuff. Check out that chick, Crow Jane, that he was talking about, man. He's been doing a lot with her, and it's really cool stuff. Yeah, he tours and runs lights. Like after we had done the death metal video, I'd hit him about something. He was like, oh man, I'm on tour right now, blah, blah, blah. He was saying, right, he was about to go to New Zealand or something, or Indonesia. What the fuck was it? It was somewhere right before COVID happened. He was glad it got canceled last minute.
That's right.
Might have been stuck in New Zealand or Indonesia or some crazy shit.
Yeah, it was like a last minute. I think it might have been Indonesia.
Yeah.
Like a last minute cancellation.
Yep. He was like literally like about to go to the airport.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some other interesting things with him, you know, we talked for like 3 hours, and much like Rudy, we talked a lot about horror movies because he's a big horror movie, film buff. He's actually working on his own debut full-length feature horror type movie.
And he did that video with Patton and Jean-Claude Vanier.
Really cool.
That really was a super cool video.
Really, how would you describe stylistically? How would you describe that?
It's hard to relate it to anything because I don't think there's anything I can compare it to, but it's very,
dark and abstract kind of sort of.
Yeah. Very, very abstract. It's dark, but not in a dark beauty. I don't know if that makes any sense. It's very beautiful, very beautiful visuals, you know, just.
Yeah.
But yes, it's kind of this dark theme around it. But,
what was fascinating about that too was the fact that when he was telling us he basically shot that in one day.
Yes.
He had to get lighting just right. He had friends over. I mean, this is a pro fucking video. It looks badass. It looks amazing. Yeah. Shot it on film, and he's like, "Yeah, I just shot that in my front yard or whatever the fuck in a day," and it's amazing. But he's like a certain time,
or certain what was it in the morning, right before daybreak or something, right?
And yeah, I mean, it's weird and creepy and beautiful all in one, and it's really, really cool. I really like that kind of stuff. But I mean, it just goes to show that he's very, very artistic. He's a great visionary, great editor. Yeah, and along with the fucking touring as a lighting guy and all the graphic design video work and stuff he does. He plays a bunch of different instruments. He plays in a band. I think he's working in a band called Satanic Planet with Justin Pearson. Yeah. And Dave Lombardo is, I think, in that band now too. And the head of the Satanic Church or some crazy shit, right? Remember?
Oh, yeah.
It's like a weird Luke something. No, that was the other guy from Planet B, JP's band. I can't remember it.
Oh, gosh. I think I wrote it down somewhere. I don't remember.
Yeah, there's so much shit. It's hard to keep up with. So he is, he's a musician too.
Yeah, musician. I mean, he made some
stuff for kink.com.
He made some machinery for kink.com. Yeah.
He made some stuff that seems like it would get a hashtag Wallen.
Can you throw some Gamecock stickers on that sucker and send one over?
Yeah. So that was obviously a fascinating podcast. And we talked about like everything under the sun on that one.
We could have gone on for, I think, another, I don't know, couple of hours. That guy just has so much stuff, and he's so humble, and he's just happy to just talk about this stuff. I would love to do another, like a part 2 with him.
And you know what I love about someone like Eric, what's so fascinating and so cool, like if you watch some of the stuff he does, there's a shock value to it. I mean, even his character, right? I mean, this dude is like a machine. He works all the time. He's like completely fucking ripped. He's covered in tattoos. Yeah. And you would just look at the guy and be like, what? I mean, you watch and you look at some of his art, some of his own personal stuff that he does, and he's like wearing a gimp mask, and it's fucking crazy. And you're just like, Jesus, this is fucking nuts. And then you talk to the guy, like you said, and he's just totally fucking cool, open, chill. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like smart dude. And I mean, I love that. I love the never judge a book by its cover kind of thing. And, I mean, yeah, man, I agree. Like, that was an awesome podcast.
Yeah.
And I definitely hope to work more with that dude in the future. Yeah. Cool. So, after that, we're at number 25, which just came out, which was Ray Prim, who's another Austinite who moved here from New York. And you have to listen to the podcast to get the real story of why Ray Prim moved to Austin, because it's not the story he used to tell radio stations when he was on tour.
No, it's not.
And it's pretty fucking funny.
It is.
It's a good classic guy story.
Yeah.
And and then so we found out, Ray, I became a fan through this songwriting group 1159, which was started by a guy here in town, Dave Madden, who's a guy I used to work with, and he's just an absurdly great musician. Which I actually talked to today. So we're looking at having him on the podcast sometime early next year. And some other people in that songwriting group. Lots of great people in that group I've met, Ray being one of them. And so I kind of became a fan, heard some of his music, very prolific, writes a lot, has like 9 albums or some crazy shit, records, does everything himself nowadays, records. So we talked some gear. We talked about his process, the recordings, and this and that. And
another guy that has a really high quality production value. I mean, his songs.
Yeah. And he does it all himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, dude, you know what's really cool? Right after talking to Ray, okay, so I had been mixing that song that we were talking about using as intro music, and that PJ and I collaborated on.
Yeah.
And after talking with Ray on this podcast, the next round I went back and I was, I've been tweaking the mix here and there over the last week or something, and I went and I did a little of what he was talking about. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna. Because I had, I always have certain things here, right? And then I have, stuff. But I was like, okay, you know what? I just kind of went a little more like that with the drums, and I took a couple of the other, like I had like the organ kind of like here,
right,
and I put it all the way over there. And so I kind of was like, you know what? I'm going to try a couple of these things that he was talking about in terms of the panning and stuff that he does.
Yeah. And I hadn't realized. I mean, right before we did that podcast, I didn't have an idea of I didn't know anything about any of that stuff, right? Panning or anything until I watched another, like Rick Beato, right? Talking about how Kim Thale on was it Spoon Man? They did a hard pan, hard right, for his guitar solo. And then when Ray started talking about that, I'm like, oh, okay, I just learned about this.
Yeah.
That was really cool. Speaking of Soundgarden.
Right. Yeah. So here's the thing about Ray. Ray's like Chris Devore. He's very, very opinionated, and I don't agree with it all. I agree with a lot of what he says. He's a huge mask fanatic, and like you've called me out on Vic. I mean, you could pretty much bank on several podcasts about the 2-hour mark, or Skunk's going to go on a masking rant, start going off on the fucking asshole anti-maskers. So anyway, Ray is one of those. I love Ray. He's a masker like myself. I know other things about Ray where he's not shy with his opinions. And he did not let us down. He has a completely unjustified disdain for Audioslave, which is ridiculous and unacceptable. And one day I'm going to force Ray Prim to listen to Audioslave. Well, the funny thing about Ray is he's this amazing songwriter who he used to hop up on stage and just starts like randomly when he moved to Austin, he just kind of found this unique talent he had. And he would just jump up on stage and start harmonizing with guys. And he did it with all the big names of the, Ian, all the guys in the late 90s, all the guys we all kind of grew up, right?
Yep.
Bob Schneider, Ian Moore.
Yeah.
He listed several other guys. And it's like he discovered himself to be, he had this knack for melody, but words are very important. So he's kind of a storyteller, songwriter, but he's very, not just like acoustic guitar storyteller, singer songwriter. Here, this very grand, lots of instrumentation. He has a very big band, has all kinds of elements in his music. But you would never go, oh, that guy's a rapper. I mean, he always said he was all into hip hop. We talked about a lot of hip hop on that show too, I think.
Yeah.
And about how he wanted to be a rapper, which I just thought was really interesting because it's stylistically, it's not how his style is at all.
No, not at all. It's not even close.
not at all. And he was telling us that he only listens to it. It's like he doesn't listen to that stuff very much. It's just all about rap and but then he got into he saw a Depeche Mode concert and he saw some rock concerts in AC/DC and got into some of this different music. And he was saying that, because he loves rap and the whole rap rock thing, he loves Rage Against the Machine.
That's right.
And he also loves Soundgarden, but he's one of those guys that's being ridiculous and won't fucking listen to when they came together to make one of the greatest albums of all time. So anyway, Ray Prim is certainly wrong on his thoughts on Audioslave.
I kind of think Tom Morello did some pretty awesome work on the Audioslave albums. I would.
Fuck yeah, he did.
I mean, I would say
it's fantastic.
Just above what he did some really awesome work with Rage, but then he just like adds more.
I still think, they're all good, but I still think that the guitar work and just the songs in general on the first Rage album and the first Audio Slave album are both almost flawless. I mean, it's just so good.
I mean, we're on the same page. We should just change Ray's picture on our on the list. We should just put the Audio Slave.
So we should just every once in a while we'll actually go take Scott Bonko's picture and we'll actually put up his real picture, and then we'll take down Ray's picture and put up just the
first Audio Slave album cover.
My name is Ray Prim and I love Audio Slave. Yeah,
that's right.
Well, we also found out that Ray is terrified of Scientologists.
That's right. We were talking about that Netflix special.
He was pleading the fifth on anything relating to Scientology. He was afraid to comment.
We were also talking about that We Are the Champions show on Netflix. And I went and watched that chili eating contest episode that he was talking about.
Yeah.
That dude's fucking evil.
Are you talking about the thing where they have comedians and whatever on and then they eat peppers?
No. This is a show called We Are the Champions. And so it's narrated by Rainn Wilson, Dwight from The Office.
Oh, yeah.
And so each episode is about whatever contest in whatever part of the world. Like the first one's a cheese rolling championship. They do it every year at some little town in England. They get an 8-pound wheel of cheese. They roll it down this hill that has like a 30 or 40 degree steeping decline, and people run down this hill chasing after, trying to get to the finish line, chasing after this wheel of cheese, and people just crash and burn down this hill. Like people get separated shoulders, break bones, all sorts of stuff. So the second episode, it's great. The second episode is the chili eating episode that Ray was talking about. And the guy that made the what was it? The Scorpion? No. What's the hottest one that he talked about?
Oh, I always thought the Carolina Reaper was the hottest pepper. But
Carolina.
Is that it?
Carolina. So it's the guy that came up with the Carolina Reaper, but he's got some more that people don't know about. But
that are even worse.
Yeah. So this whole episode is dedicated to this chili eating contest that he put on, and I don't know, from Ohio or something. I don't remember what town they're in. But it was a pretty grueling episode. Like you're watching these people just eat chilies. They get to the Reaper, and then the guy's like, "Okay, you're halfway through. Here's some more chilies," and everybody's like, "What the fuck?" It was great.
I don't understand how that can even I have seen. So Bobby Sharon from the Cobra Cast podcast here in town, right? He grows those fucking things. And I've heard, we'll have to get Omar Vallejo on here sometime. Omar is a fucking crazy bastard. We were talking about him with Mark Sean of Blackheart Saints, right? Because they record there.
That's right.
A Good Rogering has done the 512 live thing. So everyone's gone through and knows, Omar and Vallejo and all that. So, but anyway, Bobby was saying one time he had Omar on there and he like straight up ate one of those peppers off the fucking bush. Like he had the plant in his house and Omar just goes and eats a goddamn pepper off the fucking bush.
Jeez.
And I've seen certain guys like eat those peppers and do what I would do. They're running in circles and they're sweating. They're trying to drink stuff, losing their minds. And other guys just eat that motherfucker and sip on a beer and just play it cool. I don't know how you can. I did. There's a restaurant here, a Mexican restaurant that I ate at. I used to eat at when I first moved here a lot with my roommates at the time. And we did one of those stupid bets once, where it was like, oh, well, how ironic is this? I think it was for like, who knows, $20 and a bunch of toilet paper. Ironically enough, they're like, oh, we'll buy you. And dude, it wasn't even anything crazy. It was like, I don't know if a serrano pepper is kind of spicy. I don't know. It was like a medium spicy-esque pepper, right?
Yeah.
And so I just ate this whole pepper, and I was just like, fuck, and drank milk, which is the dumbest thing ever. I don't know why everyone says drink milk, because it was so disgusting. I went in the bathroom and puked.
Yeah.
Like I had a Pearl Z moment, right? There was a boot in there.
Boot puke.
And I was like, found an Uber, hailed an Uber real quick. Yeah, dude. So I don't know how these guys eat these goddamn Carolina Reapers and this shit. It's just, anyway, that show sounds wonderful.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah,
definitely gonna have to watch that. So Ray Prim likes Audio Slave. What else?
And Scientology.
And then our last episode, our in Scientology, our last episode
Right.
Was Jeff
26.
Lewis.
Oh, that one, man. It's hard to. It's like you like one of you get off, finish doing one of these podcasts, and you're like, I really like that episode. That was a great podcast, and it just keeps. We've just had some really great guests, but this one was really cool, super cool.
Yeah, I mean, especially talking with Eric Allen Livingston and guys like him and Jeff Lewis who have they have such unbelievably careers.
Yeah.
So Jeff Lewis is out in Los Angeles. He has a studio called Moonlight Studios, which we got a great backstory on why the name of the studio.
Yeah.
And he lives in he lives out in Los Angeles and has just early on discovered that he had through some, I forget what the exact premise, but somebody came along and was doing something talking about band and woodwinds and horns and they demonstrated on a garden hose about how to blow. So he literally started by blowing into a garden hose and figuring out how to make tones. Got a trumpet, and then it just goes from there.
Yeah. And
so this guy, when you say he's a world-class trumpet player, like you're not fucking bullshitting. Like this dude, trumpet, trombone, flugelhorn, he was actually part of the show. He was sharing all these different instruments, showing us the difference. We were talking about the technical side of these instruments.
A valve trombone, which I've never seen before.
Valve trombone, which was on. He played that and trumpet on Mr. Peanut. One of my songs, and I never knew that existed. I just knew he's like, I did trumpet and trombone. And then he shows us this valve trombone that's like a trumpet. So that was fascinating. Starts on a garden hose, goes and plays all these brass instruments, ends up, was going to UCLA for pre-med.
Yeah.
Gets a degree in biology. And a year later, but he had always been playing in bands and doing all this and that. And a year later, he's on the road with the Jacksons, with Michael Jackson. And so he talked a bunch about the Jacksons and the history of the Jacksons, and he had a lot of insight into that whole history and Michael and the whole thing. Joe Jackson, and what a charming rose of a man that guy was.
I would say that if you're listening to this on Spotify or whatever audio platform, just for this episode, just check it out. Watch the video. Go to YouTube sometime. Watch the video, especially the part where he's showing us the pictures.
Yeah, some of this stuff is very well. Same with Eric Allen Livingston because he showed off a lot of his artwork. We had a whole segment in there where for a good 10 minutes or so, he was showing off artwork. He was showing literally stuff. These are my mock-ups. These are the mock-ups that I sent for Dead Cross, that I sent for Mr. Bungle. He's showing us this stuff. And with Jeff, he's showing us the horns and then he played some samples of some music that he's been working on. That was that one guy, I don't remember the name, but it was, he played this awesome French group with a singer playing accordion and upright bass.
Oh,
and then he played another guy that had this huge African choir and it got kind of gospel. So he played some samples of
musical or something, or an opera, right?
Something.
Yeah.
And obviously showing us the horns. We were nerded out a lot. We talked about studio gear and he was showing us around his studio. Another reason, the visuals too, right? He's showing the pictures of him and the Jacksons and but not only that. So he toured with the Jacksons. He toured with
played with Stevie Wonder.
Stevie Wonder got on stage or something. He used to do part of some Dick Clark show.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He toured with Tower of Power. John Watson, Tower of Power. Played with someone from Tower of Power. Played with someone. What's the guy's name from the Doobie Brothers?
Yeah, Tommy. Tommy. Gosh, what was it? Tommy something.
Anyway, yeah. So he's played with everybody basically. But yeah, so he did. Had several years of just incredible tours, and now he plays with the band Tierra, which he's played with since I think the early '80s, and they do big concerts over here, around here and there. But he's had a studio for the last 40 years, and that was actually really interesting listening to him talk about the studio because they started out on 4 tracks and cassette tapes. And then they moved up, into DAT recorders, and then like everybody, you get in the digital world and the Pro Tools and Logic Audio and all the stuff that he has now. But way back, what they would do, what was so fascinating was they actually had these world class players, guys who played he named so many names it's hard to remember.
Guitar players, bass players, players.
Guys from George Benson and the Remingtons and Oingo Boingo bass player and And then the guy, and of course he was able to say like, he played with the fucking Jacksons and stuff. So basically what would happen, they started this business where people would shop their, or they would, aspiring songwriters would write a song, have a demo, or just real simple guitar singing stuff, send it to them. They would arrange it. They'd make charts, and they'd bring in these world-class players, who when everyone was not off tour, they're all just hanging around Los Angeles. They're all, just toured with, and they just knew, and they'd like, cool, they'd get together and they just they would just, record these high-end demos for clients. And then that eventually started becoming where they started, then their clients started pressing them as albums. So they just, they went from a demo production studio to a studios. But the whole way that came about, and just hearing him talk about, you've got like, you're can you imagine, like, right? Like you're just, who's playing on your demo? And it's like these guys, and like every musician's like ridiculously, high end,
Oh, Dave Ellefson,
Marty
Friedman.
Exactly. Yeah. But might as well is whatever the R&B version of Megadeth is or something. He just had like the most disgusting roster of players.
Yeah, those guys aren't touring. They're coming off tour. They're just kind of just sitting at home. What are you doing Tuesday morning? You want to make some money? Come and be a session player.
Yeah, cool. All right, we'll go hang out at Moonlight Studios.
Yeah,
have some donuts and coffee, and throw down, lay down 6 songs, make a few bucks, hang out.
2 hours of work, hang out, eat some donuts.
So pretty cool, man. But and Jeff's just a super cool, nice guy. That I met him through my friend Saganya, who I've known for like over 20 years now, and she met him. I don't even know. Oh, he told the story on that and how they, some Thai clients he's had. She's from Thailand.
Yeah.
And that's how I met him, is because, me and her went to his studio just to do some live cover songs a few times. And it became kind of a tradition there for a while when I'd go out to LA. But man, what a career, dude. So I hate to like pick any podcast over any other. And like you're saying, it's like what I found is so cool is like everybody has a story and everybody has just this amazing amounts of like cool, interesting, unique information, like every single person we've talked to, there hasn't been a single podcast where like, that could have gone better. That was kind of bland, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think we're the most boring people on the podcast whenever we have these.
Well, no, it's true. Like I actually, what's funny is I saw someone comment on, and I know I have this problem and I'm excitable and I should probably like do Quaaludes or something before our podcast, because I get excited and I start talking and then on this fucking Zoom bullshit and things duck and cut out. And so half the podcast I'm going, sound like a robot. And, so I that's what see there, I can't even control. Jesus. I think I could be a little more bored. Oh, I saw a comment on, I think it was when Mark Sean, when Mark Sean shared the podcast, someone else was like, someone commented and they were like, that was great. The other guy talked about himself too much. Like, all right. I'm that guy now. I'm that fucking shut the hell up, you annoying host. You're not of any importance. But
hey, at least they noticed.
Yeah. So what's cool though is, I mean, I actually really like just listening to just all this fascinating shit from all these other people, getting all these inside interesting stuff, because you kind of see the surface level of a person's band or their persona or whatever, but you don't know all the intricacies. I mean, a band like Tibetan Sky Burial would be a really good example, right? Because they're very much, the image of that band is very dark and the content is very serious, and the music video and everything is very, like, their branding is very impressive. But sitting there shooting the shit with those guys and talking about,
stretchy anuses.
You can't get that anywhere else, and that's why you should tune into Eclectic Soundtrax. I do think I think as we've we sort of got the last few podcasts where we've kind of dealt with some guys who are working, have really done some pretty high level stuff. I did refrain from asking about bowel movement stories. I was like, you toured with the Jacksons. I don't think. I think we've gotten enough interesting information today without. That should be a thing. Your career is so fascinating, you don't even have to tell a shit story. Yeah, so there it is. 26 episodes of Eclectic Podcast in the can, so to speak. And
more to come.
More to come. And no one's going to listen to this because it's 2 hours, I guess, but whatever.
Whatever.
It's fun. They're lost, man. Like I mean, these podcasts are so cool. Like I really, what I'm liking is that I'm lately really trying to promote the podcast, and it's not about promoting me or any of my music. I'm really like going like, because you get so caught up in that when you're a musician, right? And you're so busy trying to, and I understand that with all these people, it's like, who's going to go listen to my shit? Everyone, you got your own stuff, right? And so for me, it's like, I think a lot of guys, even though I know them or their friends or their colleagues, am I going to go listen to their catalog? Am I going to go? Probably not,
Right.
But now I've been doing that, because I'm like, oh, here's the guest, and let me go. And all of a sudden you're just like, holy shit, like Pearl's song and, like stuff like that. You're just like, man, like really discovering like absolutely amazing music, and then getting to know these artists. And so for me, it's like, it's really like made me like want to promote the podcast for the sake of promoting all these great artists that we've had on they're also such cool people,
Yeah.
So, well, anyway, before we sign off, what were we going to say?
No, I was going to say, I mean, even though, we just go on and chat, it goes by so fast, right? Doesn't even seem like we're chatting. Like for Eric's like 3 hours and change. Didn't seem like it.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe they're long, but you know what? I feel like that's what a podcast is supposed to be. It's supposed to be an organic conversation with somebody, and let it be what it like art, just let it be.
Agreed.
Well, who do we have coming up, man? What's coming up in the next, for the remainder of the year, I guess, and then into early January? Do you have that in front of you?
Ooh.
I know we've got Will Knack.
Yep.
Will Knack will be next week, late next week, maybe. Will Knack plays with Blue October, and he's played with like everybody under the sun. I mean, that guy's played with so many people. Ernie Durawa residencies at Strange Brew, and I forgot the backstage. Slipping a name.
Giddy
my mind, I did. Well, that's where I met him back in the day. Yeah,
I remember that.
We met at Giddy Ups, man, and when Will and I have always had a cool mutual respect. And I've just seen his career, so we got him, we got Dave Shear, which I mentioned, who plays with Eric Johnson and is just an incredible musician, in every aspect. I saw him play at Strange Brew. I think it was, it might've been along with one time Ernie was playing there too. And I was like, oh wow, this guy's fucking amazing. Who else? Friend of mine from who lives out in Las Vegas named Michelle Adams, who has a radio show out there where she plays rock and metal, and they talk about porn. That's gonna be fun. She's coming on in a few weeks.
I wonder if she's early next been to kink.com.
I bet she has. She probably knows some of Eric's work.
Yeah. Okay. So, Michelle Adams. Dave Shear.
That's it for the year. That's it for the year.
For the year. Yeah. And then we start back up again after New Year's, and we're going to bring back Jerry and talk about Idiocracy.
Yeah. Jerry Connerly. Yeah, for sure. Tylenol Jones from Idiocracy.
Tylenol Jones.
Talk about stories. That guy's got stories too, man.
Oh man. Yeah. Yeah. He's great. And then we've got Guy.
All right.
Later
Guy.
On. Yeah.
Oh, those are going to be some good. Guy's got, Rudy and John. So you got Rudy and John, right? With like two of the best shit stories of all time. And then Guy's right there with him. But Guy, it's not even his own. It's someone else's. And it's just something about when he tells it in the English accent. And it's like, I can't even start to tell it because I couldn't possibly do it justice, but it's good. And by the way, Guy's also, speaking of like the multi-talented artist, right? So I met Guy at MI way back, and we just had a lot of common, just became friends immediately. And I went over to England and hung out with him, and we did old recordings on that. Remember we were talking with Jeff about ADATs and shit. I remember a guy had 2 ADATs, and we used to do the exact same thing he was talking about. We had a Alesis SR16 drum machine. We'd program drums. We'd stripe the tape, the ADAT tape, and record it. And I remember sitting there with Guy fucking like play, rewind, recording this fucking shit. And Guy would just do these ridiculous, sweet picking, just amazing, absurdly great guitar solos. And I'd be like, Jesus Christ, that was amazing. And he'd be like, throw it away. I can do better. I'm like, are you sure? Like, just so good, man. And he had like every goddamn instrumental guitar album, like all the old Shrapnel records from the 80s and all these. I mean, I got introduced to so many great guitar players from him, and he was also like super into just a lot of like 80s pop and a lot of film music. He knows a ton about films. I'm sure it'll be very similar with Rudy. Well, you know, a lot of film talk, a lot of guitar nerd talk, shit stories, like just a good full rounded podcast, man. It'll be awesome having Guy. I mean, he's one of my best friends. I've known him for a long time. So Guy, and then isn't Rob Dew in there too, early January?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Rob Dew, Omar.
Oh, Omar Musca, right? The director, right? Yeah.
Yep. Mark Laspina.
Yeah. That's going to be an interesting one. He's a musician, and I kind of know him more or less just through Facebook and the, the Facebook group I started with at the height of all this political rhetoric and just absolute insanity that has been 2020, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that is a potentially very politically charged podcast.
Okay.
So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and we're, when we've got shit booked all the way into March now. So we're, as Dirk Diggler says, we're just going to keep rocking and rolling.
There you go. All right. So that's a wrap on the recap, right?
Recap wrap. All right, man. Cool. I need to go get a drink.
Yeah. Same here.
Beverage time. Until next time. This has been Skunk and Vic with Eclectic Soundtrax. Hope you tune in. Many, many great guests we've already had. Many, many, many more to come. Take care of yourselves. Wear a fucking mask. See you later.
Laters.
American party, huh?